I am master of the universe, and I must claim my domain. They will flock to my cause, and for good reason. Limitless power! Limitless!
Well, you may not own the universe, but if you're narrating it, it can be pretty sweet. We'll talk about it coming up straight ahead on the Audiobook Trail podcast.
It's time to take a ride down the audiobook trail. The show dedicated to the wonderful world of audiobooks.
Reading. This is so exciting.
Featuring award-winning narrator and producer John McClane.
Still cowboy, Mr. McClane, Americans, all alike.
Exploring the art of storytelling.
I want to hear a story. I'm an artist. I don't know any story. You tell a story.
I'll do story.
Once upon a time, you're a natural.
From inside the booth to the tip of your earbuds.
Take those ridiculous things off.
And everything in between.
I'm coming out of the booth!
So saddle up and join us now.
Man, I just want to ride, man. I just want to ride.
As we take another ride together down the audiobook trail.
What about John McClane?
He's ready to go.
McClane.
Here's John McClane.
Okay, thank you so much, and welcome to the Audiobook Trail podcast. This is chapter 54, coming to you from Dallas, Texas. Great to have you along here for this episode. We're going to talk about the universe and what that means in terms of audiobook narration. We're not talking about the actual universe, but a concept of writings, of creative writings, whether it's books, films, what have you, known as universe, universes, universi. I need to think about that one.
I've traveled every road in this here land. I've been everywhere.
Well, no time to do that because we have the Audiobook Trail Hometown Roundup. Thank you for listening out in Norwalk, California, Danville, Kentucky, McKinney, Texas, and New Haven, Indiana. So appreciative to have you all along here for the Audiobook Trail. We are heard all around the world on various platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, also Amazon, Listen Notes, Podcast Addict, Podchaser, Pandora, many, many others. And, of course, you can listen to us anytime you want. The latest 10 episodes are always available for you at audiobooktrail.com. And so you can check out the show there, along with the other things, including Trailovision. Want to say hi to all those watching the podcast on our YouTube channel, Trailovision. You can find that at audiobooktrail.com, and you can subscribe to it. I put a button right there if you'd like to watch the podcast and then listen, whatever you want to do. I thought it would be nice to offer both. So I'm welcoming you to that, and also welcoming you to leave me a note right next to the screen of Trailovision. You'll find the Dear John section where you can send a note into the podcast with your questions, comments, or other types of blather, whatever you have to say. I'm actually very interested in it. You would be surprised. It's wonderful to get. Remember when letter writing in the actual mail was a big deal? You may not remember that. But in the years before email, getting a letter in the mail was really, really cool. And you couldn't wait to tear into it and find out what Aunt Helen or whoever's writing you would have to say. And it's the same thing when I get a Dear John note in the email box. It's the same kind of thrill for my old soul. So I'd love to hear from you. You've gotten a lot of great show ideas and suggestions. In fact, Trailovision is being used to video record the podcast because of suggestions from folks going, you know what, it'd be nice if you had a cam in there, if you would step over the threshold into the 21st century. I think somebody actually said that, which, I get it. I don't take it personally. You're right. I need those types of helps. So anyway, if you would do that, that would be great. And on your platform that you are watching or listening, would you leave a review of the podcast? That would be really, really helpful to us. Those algorithms, they rule the universe on the internet. And so if the algorithm thinks that a lot of people care, they'll promote us out. And that would be really helpful to me. I really would appreciate it. So subscribes, likes, stars, whatever platform you're on, it'll have its own way of doing things, but they'll all have a way for you to review the show. And I'd sure appreciate you doing that. If you could just take a couple minutes, it makes a huge, huge difference to us at the Audiobook Trail. Coming up, the Audie Awards happened, depending on when you're listening to this, a couple nights ago. As we're recording this, it was last night. The Audie Awards happened in L.A. We will talk about the big winners of the major awards and so forth, and some comments about the Audie Awards coming up later on today's Audiobook Trail ride. Let's talk about the universe. This is something that I had a brief conversation with an author that I've narrated some of his work before, and he checked in with me and said, hey, listen, I want to tell you about, stuff that's coming up, which is always great to hear from him. And it got me thinking about universe in writing. We're all familiar with, universes. Is it universes? Or it's got to be. It's not universi. That's silly. It's universes. We're all familiar with that in terms of film, right? Lately, especially in science fiction, you've got Marvel and you've got, a universe is more than a series. It's like a super series. And so a series, serials are great. When I grew up reading Hardy Boys mysteries. Well, I had a whole shelf of those blue Hardy Boys books. And then they had the purple Nancy Drew books, which is the same kind of thing, just with a different protagonist. Series. You would see recurring characters. Our hero always returns. Usually the hero's significant other always returns. There's usually the friend or the sidekick. Sometimes a bad guy would return. Think Superman. Lex Luthor never died. Kept coming back. Series are great in audiobooks, and the first reason why they're great is obvious, because if you do say book one in a series, okay. And you do a good job, assuming you do a good job, they're going to bring you back for book 2 and book 3 and book 4. And if it does well, the author will keep writing as long as they're making money. Now, if it flops, then the series will end, or if the author, heaven forbid, passes away or just decides to move on, they're sick of it or whatever. But the fact is, if you do a good job establishing character and setting and telling a good story where your listener is engaged and gets to know these characters, the publisher's going to have you back. And the author, in many cases, will ask the publisher to have you back, because the narrator and partnering with the author in the series is making the series popular, thereby allowing the author the author's publisher is going to say, you know what, we're going to bring you on. We want you to write another edition in this series because it's sold well. It's making money for us. So it's a win-win-win-win all the way around. And, a TV series, the reason they do those is to build a fan base, so that hopefully next year they'll pick the series up for another year or even 3 years or whatever the case may be if it's super popular. Same thing happens in books. It's a wonderful tool. It's a wonderful vehicle for authors to make a good living, and for publishers to make money as well, and in turn, narrators. So, I've done several series in my career. One that just leaps to mind as I'm sitting here thinking about it. I did a series for Podium that was called the Port Sterling Mysteries. And basically, it's a series about a guy who was a detective in Plano, Texas. And I live like a mile and a half from Plano. So that was probably one reason why I was considered for the gig. In any event, this guy has a bad experience and decides he's going to, his wife leaves him and all this kind of thing. So he leaves Texas looking for a new life, and he goes out to the coast of Oregon to a fictional town called Port Sterling. And there becomes the police chief and solves mysteries and meets a bunch of interesting people, and really, really good series. And I did those, and it was really fun to come back, say 9 months, 10 months later, that the publisher would say, hey, she's written another book in the series, and we'd like to bring you on to do that. Can you do it? Yes. And then you go back and you listen to the first time to reacquaint yourself with the characters and the setting and the feel. And it's really a fun exercise for a performer to do that. And you get the gig, right? Because once you do book 1 in the series, and assuming you've done a good job, done all the things we always talk about, telling the story, and assuming the author is happy, and they will be if it's doing well. The authors are almost always happy with narration, which is really a blessing, because you always worry about that. But they're almost always blown away hearing their stories told by someone else, and by a professional performer. It really kind of, it opens that bud into a beautiful flower in many ways in their mind. In any event, you get the gig. They want you to come back again and again, and you find yourself as a narrator going, boy, I can't wait till book 4 comes out. I can't wait till book 5 comes out. But what if there was 15 books? What if it was like a Hardy Boys where you got a whole shelf of books? Sometimes that happens. I've done other series. I've done Russian spy series from Stuart Kaminsky. I've done lots of series. They're great. I love them. But there's a series on steroids that happens, and it's a universe where not only, whereas in a series, you're bringing back a set of characters, of, core characters and a setting. Usually the setting typically doesn't change, although it can. In a universe, now you're bringing in different sets of characters within stories that are all interconnected in this universe. So, the obvious example is Marvel. Think of the Marvel universe in motion pictures. How many Marvel movies have been made? Let's see, what do we have? We have Thor, we have Iron Man, we have Spider-Man DC. I don't remember. You have all these different series of these characters. Oh, Captain America. I was sitting here, racking my brain. Captain America, the Hulk, and then they do these Avengers where all of these characters come together, but then they all have their own little worlds, and you end up with what's called the Marvel Universe. DC has the same kind of thing with Batman and Superman and Aquaman. They and the X-Men, they've all got these wonderful universe, and then you get fans, that will go and see any of these films because they're all part of the universe, and the fans feel like they're a very real part of that. Well, guess what? There's the same kind of things in books. And one that leaps to mind in books is one that I've worked in quite a bit and that I love. And I'm going to unpack that a little bit. But think about the power of the universe and organizing. So this is usually multiple authors. In fact, I would say it's always multiple authors, because in a universe, you want to get as many books to the marketplace as quickly as you can. Okay, and they're good. I'm not saying they're slopping through these things. If they slop through them, it'll fail because readers are picky, right? If a book stinks, they're not afraid to tell you, especially in the internet age. So these books are very well written. The owners of this universe, and all the copyrights thereof and so forth, are very picky in vetting their authors that they're going to bring into the universe to put these books out. There's lots of them. And you think about films, there's the Star Wars universe, there's the Star Trek universe, and you can send me a Dear John note telling me which one of those is better, stating your case. Hint, it's Star Trek. Then there's Marvel and DC. And in audiobooks, there's the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe. Edgar Rice Burroughs was an author in the early to mid 20th century who was writing science fiction in a time when there wasn't much of that going on. Pretty much any type of science was fiction back then, beyond the basic sciences that we knew about. But all this computer age and space age stuff was pretty new in those days. Edgar Rice Burroughs is best known for creating Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle, right? Lord Greystoke. I remember as a kid, you remember this if you grew up in the 80s, watching cartoons, especially the early 80s, there was Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle on Saturday morning, animated cartoon. Loved that show. That show was so cool because in animation, you can do anything you want. You can, apes can talk in cartoons. And so they had all these great adventures, and Tarzan, this great hero, would swing through the trees. Really, really cool. I remember really, really liking that a lot. But as I got into the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe that I was unaware of at the time, and now as a narrator am very aware of, Burroughs created Tarzan as a very diverse character that's way more than the guy in the loincloth swinging through the trees, defending the jungle and all of that. He is an English nobleman who is wealthy. He's a war hero. He's a pilot. He does all kinds of things. And yes, he goes to other planets. It is a wonderful, and Tarzan is just one series within this universe. There are other characters like John Carter and Carson of Venus and all these other wonderful characters, and I have had the privilege to narrate a stack of these things, and they're great. And but the cool thing is the folks at Edgar Rice Burroughs and many of the authors that work for Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated that have deals with them to put out these new adventures within different pockets or different, like a family tree, different branches of the family tree that is ERB. They like the way I tell the stories. And I've gotten that feedback from them. And as a result, I've been blessed with so much great work from the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe. I love these books, and every one of them is so unique and different. And every time you turn the page, you read and go, whoa, how did they come up with that idea? And it's literally like going on an adventure with the character, And what it makes me realize is that when you're blessed with this type of material, when it sweeps you as a professional storyteller away, think what it's doing for the listener. You know, the old adage, if you believe it, they'll believe it. You know, we hear that in acting all the time. If you believe it yourself, you know, if you believe you're being teleported to Mars, the audience will believe it. If you're faking it, they're not going to believe you. And so, you know, the secret sauce of acting is believing it yourself. And that's why I talk about a big part of narrating effectively a story is translating the author's truth. Even if it's fiction, within the pages of that book, that sphere of reality belongs to the author and the author's pen. And so whatever they're saying in that moment is true. And as the narrator, your job is to transmit or transfer that truth into the mind of your listener. Okay, that's the secret sauce. That's the magic that happens. But when you have such a well-written book that is so creative and from such a wonderful universe as the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. These stories tell themselves. They're just fabulous, and it is so much fun. And so hats off to Edgar Rice Burroughs. If you're into really creative sci-fi, and I'm not talking, it's not cheesy at all. It is well written and developed, and all the stories, like any good universe will, the series, you know, you have these intersections, you know, where these degrees of separation, where these characters will suddenly, you know, you flip a page and suddenly they're bumping into each other, you know, in their travels or what have you. Sometimes they'll partner up and they'll fight a war, you know, or battle the evil, you know, influence or whatever it is. There's really no bounds in these things other than they are wonderful, wonderful stories. If you can get involved in a universe, do it. The only caution I would say is that the more developed a universe is, the more passionate their fans are. And these fans will catch anything that is inauthentic, anything that you miss, you really have to be on your toes, because these universe fans, and you know, that makes sense, right? I mean, if you go to the bookstore and you're just browsing because you want something to read, and you grab a book and you're like, oh, this looks interesting, and you read it and you think, well, that was a good book, but it's a one-off, you know. The dog just woke up and shook. Hey, buddy, I'm doing the show. Okay. Anyway, it's a different thing than if you're invested, you know, if you've read 15 books from the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe and you come up with, you know, and I'm doing one of these books and I mail it in or I botch it or I have a bad day, they're going to find out. So there's a lot of pressure. You've really got to be on your toes when you're narrating these types of adventure stories. But if you can get involved in a universe, do it. And I will do a shameless plug here because I'm very proud of all of the ERB Incorporated Universe books that I have done. If you go to wherever you get audiobooks and just, you know, complete disclosure, I don't make a nickel if you buy these things. I've already been paid. I've been paid up front. There's no royalties. But the authors that wrote these do get paid. And I hope that you will go out and check these out. They are wonderful. Just search for Edgar Rice Burroughs, ERB, Tarzan, John, you know, they're out there and you can find out and really get into these. They're really, really cool. They're fun adventures and really well developed. And I am happy to promote them here on the Audiobook Trail. Don't go away. Coming up, we're going to visit the Audies, tell you who the big winners were coming up here on the Audiobook Trail podcast. Don't go away.
Every guitar deserves to be played. Introducing the Guitar Foster Parent channel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Guitar Foster Parent. I'm John McLean.
Available now on YouTube, hosted by John McLean.
I know that guitar players are picky about their picks. Did I really just say that?
He's not a luthier.
You may be watching this and saying, I knew that. I didn't.
Not a master woodworker.
Well, kind of a disaster here.
Not even a great player.
Kind of a disaster.
But he loves guitars. Join us as we take in the unwanted and unplayed, fix them up, and then place them in forever homes where they will make music again.
So here we go. This is the idea. Taking our time and being careful, checking, make sure our positioning is good.
Just search YouTube for the Guitar Foster Parent. subscribe, and join the fun as we give some wonderful instruments a new lease on life.
It's the gaps between that usually get the most build-up. It's funny how there's so many analogies between dentistry and cleaning a guitar, but it's the same kind of thing.
The guitar foster parent.
Can't believe I did this. Actually, yes, I can. I can totally believe it.
Because every guitar deserves to be played.
Hot off the wire, here's the latest audiobook news.
Well, like I said before, whenever you're listening to the Audiobook Trail, the Audie Awards happened on Monday night, the 4th of March in Los Angeles this year at the fabulous Avalon in Hollywood. It's actually a pretty cool venue. There's a lot of cool stuff that's happened at the Avalon. The Beatles have been there, all kinds of cool stuff, pretty historic. And so the APA bagged the Avalon for their venue this year, which is really, really cool. The Audie Awards happened, and I wanted to just highlight some of the big awards the most coveted Audie Awards that were taken home last night because I'm recording this on Tuesday, on Monday night the 4th. Audiobook of the year. This is the biggie. This is the one. This is the best picture. This is the big Audie Award, and it went to Bono. The lead singer of U2. Bono has written a book called Surrender, and he narrated it himself. And Bono took home the Audiobook of the Year honors for Surrender. Other notables, best memoir and autobiography was Making It So, written and narrated by Patrick Stewart, another Star Trek reference. And of course, Patrick Stewart, he's got that voice. You never have to wonder. It's like Morgan Freeman. You never have to wonder who's saying that. Stewart is just fabulous. So congratulations to him. Best Fiction is another biggie. That one went to The Last Lifeboat by Hazel Gaynor, narrated by Billy Fulford Brown. Congratulations. And Best Nonfiction went to a book that's somewhat acclaimed, King, A Life, which is a biography of Martin Luther King Jr. written by Jonathan Eig, narrated by Dion Graham. Dion actually was nominated for many. He was wearing, when you were a finalist at the Audies, you get a medallion. Looks kind of like an Olympic medal. And the funny thing is, when you're at the Audies, you get these narrators that have really, cleaning up, and they've got 4 or 5 nominations. They clang, it's like a cowbell. Like cling, 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 cling. You can hear them all around the room. It's kind of funny. So that was Dion Graham last night, and he had a lot of nominations, but he won for Best Nonfiction for King, A Life. So congratulations. By the way, there's too many awards to mention all the categories here on the show. So I will put a link. APA, the Audio Publishers Association, who owns and runs the Audie Awards, puts together a really nice graphic page of the winners. Shows the finalists and then sets aside the winner. It shows the cover art, which oftentimes audiobook consumers want to see because they are, that's kind of how they look for these. So it's all there with links to reviews and all that good stuff. I'll put a link in the show notes. So wherever platform or however you listen, if you look in the show notes, you can go to this page and see if your favorite audiobook took home the gold, or may give you ideas on stuff to listen to if you see something that's interesting. I mean, these, according to the Audie Award judges, are the best of the best for the past year. So you can check those out and see the deal there. One thing that I wanted to mention, though, as I was browsing the nominations and then, of course, the winners last night, and this is often discussed. And, of course, I obviously I didn't go to the Audies this year. I stayed home. But when I go to the awards and when I hear the discussion afterward, and it will happen again this year, it always does, there's always the discussion about, isn't it interesting how whenever a celebrity does an audiobook and is nominated, they almost always win. Okay. And there are varying degrees of, angst, about this. I will confess, early in my career, I was pretty starry-eyed about the Audies, and it's like a drug. You can get addicted to chasing those awards and obsessing over the process and how am I gonna get one. I've been nominated twice, didn't win either one, and at this point, I'm fine with that. I'm honored to even be recognized. There's so many narrators. But I wanted to mention, because there are some narrators that get kind of bitter about that. It's like, oh, well, I'm in a category and Meryl Streep's nominated. Well, I might as well not even go. And frankly, that celebrity's probably going to win. Now, interestingly, Meryl Streep was nominated this year, and she lost to Bono. So, if you've got multiple celebrities in a category, then you kind of got a battle there. But typically, the celebrities win. Now, I want to be very, very clear here, okay? I am not suggesting that the judging is in any way tainted or fixed or anything like that. Far from it. These judges come forward and they listen to dozens of hours of audiobooks, and they pick through them. And these are literary people. They don't pick them off the street. These are people that love books, that know audiobooks, that know what to listen for. They know good acting. They know good storytelling, and they do a great, great job, and a difficult job. I mean, when you're listening to all these, they're all good. They're all wonderful, and they all have their high points. How do you pick a winner? And many judges have said it's a very hard job, and I believe it. It is. It's a very hard job. But the celebrities, the big names, the A-listers, they seem to rise to the top every time. And, I don't, that does not bother me. And I want to tell you why. As a non-celebrity, I'm not a C-list or D-lister. I'm not even on a list. And I'm fine with that. But I want to tell you my thoughts about this. And I've heard from narrators that fall all along this continuum of, on the extreme. I've heard narrators say, the Audies are fixed. There's not even any point in paying attention to it. It's all, And then there are people on the other side that say, no, these people win because they're truly the best of the best actors and they deserve to win. And that could be true. As usual, I fall somewhere in the middle. Here's what I want to say about this. The Audie Awards are owned and run by the Audio Publishers Association, the APA. I'm a member. They do fabulous work for the audiobook industry. They are the industry organization that seeks to promote the medium of audiobooks. That's what they do. And notice in the name, they are the Audio Publishers Association. They're not the Audiobook Narrators Association. They are the Audio Publishers Association. Their mission is to promote the industry of audiobook publication, which benefits narrators, and they like us, and they care about us, and we're invited to their convention, and they do what they can to promote us. I mean, that's what the Audie Awards do. Narrators take home, a statuette or trophy or what have you. But their goal is not to promote narrators. Their goal is to promote the audiobook industry. And that's fine. And I'll just tell you, if John McClane wins Audiobook of the Year, that's not going to make USA Today, but when Bono, who is a worldwide celebrity and not only a rock star, but is also known for benevolence and kindness, he's a guy that cares. He's universally loved, this guy. When he narrates a book and then writes a book and then narrates his own book, it's probably really fabulous, and it benefits the industry for him to win because that will make the major press. Rockstar Bono takes home, right? And I'm fine with that because APA's vision, their mission is what? To promote the industry. They want to put audiobooks as a medium in front of more people around the world. And that's totally fine because as that trickles down, narrators like me, backlist fellows, we benefit. Because the more audiobooks that are sold, the more audiobooks need to be in the marketplace, and that's when they come knocking on my door going, hey, you got time to do this book for us? So I'm fine with that. Do celebrities have an advantage? Yeah, I think they do, and I think it's totally justified. The Audie Awards are not designed to, sit there and pick through and decide, if I'm better than it's a promotional tool for audiobooks, and it's totally fine. Yes, the judges work hard, and yes, they select the material they think is best. But yes, celebrities have an advantage, and I am totally, totally fine with that. Well, as usual, we're almost out of time because I blather on endlessly, but I wanted to do a shout out to Oasis Audio, who is one of my favorite clients. They are responsible for the ERB titles that I get. They're the ones that partner up and send them. They sent me they send out promotional copies because they still put books out on discs, either CDs or MP3 discs, and they do such a great job. They sent me, they always send me a promotional copy just to have, which is very, very nice. I don't have to do that. but they do it because they're nice people. And so I wanted to thank them. I got a copy of Dark Tides of Mars by Chris L. Adams, which is part of the Edgar Rice Burroughs universe. And they sent me this. Great book. Also wanted to mention Swords Against the Moon Men and Tarzan Battle for Pellucidar. These two ERB titles were written by Christopher Paul Carey and Wynne Scott Eckert, respectively. Two gentlemen who have become fans of mine because I read their work and they like the way I do it. And I'm going to be having one or both of them on this program coming up here before too long. They both listen to the Audiobook Trail. They're fans of the show, which I'm so flattered because they are great authors. I love their work, and I'm excited to have them on the show. That'll be coming up on a future episode. I thank you for listening to this one. Have a super duper week. We'll see you next time on the Audiobook Trail. So long.
Thanks, friend, for riding with us down the Audiobook Trail. Sure been great having you along. Stop on by audiobooktrail.com for more. And while you're there, drop us a line. We always love hearing from you. So long for now, from the Audiobook Trail.
See you next week.
Okay, going bye.